Okay, welcome everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the House Regulatory Subcommittee of Regulated Industries to order. This is normally the part in the committee meeting where I thank the members for being here. But as you can see, we have no members here, which interestingly is not required for a quorum for a subcommittee. So I have a feeling that we've got some people detained. I know there are some committee conflicts at this hour because I myself am missing another committee meeting. But we do have our members here that are presenting bills, and so we're going to go ahead and proceed as normal. We are hearing three bills today: HB 575, HB 880, HB 904, which my understanding is there is a sub for that bill that the committee, we do not have copies of that yet. So Jan has gone to make us copies. We'll be awaiting that. So I think we're going to go ahead and move on to our other two bills. We're going to start with HB 880. So at this time, will the author of the bill, Representative Ballard, if you'll please come to the podium and tell us about your bill.
Members of the committee who are here in spirit, I'm sure. So this bill is a bill to cut through the regulatory red tape that our military spouses have to go through when they move to Georgia. And just a personal story, when I was engaged to my husband, who was active duty Air Force at that time, I was told by an older spouse, never rely on your salary to pay the bills because you won't be able to get a job when you move. Now, this was 28 years ago. Some things have changed. We've gone in the right direction in a few places. But I want to make sure that this advice is never given out to spouses who are moving to Georgia. And I want to help our employers in our military communities have the flexibility and the freedom to hire who they need to hire. Georgia has 9 military installations across the state with an economic impact that is estimated at $20 billion. And I think that that's more than most people understand. We've got 57,000 active duty service members and 25,000 spouses. An active duty family packs up and moves every 2 years, and that means you start your life over every 2 years, which nobody else really does. It's a unique group of people who are called to service. Right now, the Department of Defense ranks states in their military friendliness, and they rank them in a variety of ways: schools, healthcare, licensure for spouses. And in our category for licensure for spouses, Georgia gets a 0. We are awarded 0 points, which means when we are competing with other states to get missions to come to Georgia, we sometimes are losing them. And this is disheartening for our military communities, to say the least. In fact, I looked and we lag behind other states, including New York and California. Our bluest of the blue states have easier regulatory rules for our military spouses. Another fact, the national unemployment rate for military spouses is 21%. And that's because a lot of people just give up looking. And 90% of spouses report that their service members' military career negatively impacts their career progress. And again, that makes people not feel at home in their community when they can't get a job, and it impacts their families negatively. A couple more facts to bring out to the group. A first-year enlisted service member with a spouse and child makes just over $24,000 per year. That makes them eligible for WIC in Georgia. And that is why these military spouses who come in need to be able to get that job the minute they get to Georgia. We can't wait months to let these people have half their income in their family. This bill is a win-win for us. Military spouses get the jobs they need. Employers in these military communities get the employees they need. They get their flexibility. They get their freedom. And Georgia will continue to be viewed as a military state, friendly state. So thank you, Madam Chairwoman and committee member, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see here. Chairman Martin has a question for you.
Thank you. I have a question for the author and then perhaps for our learned counsel down there. In reading through the bill, so you don't want them to have to get licensed in Georgia at all, or to work toward getting licensure in Georgia?
They can certainly choose to do that if they want to, and a lot do, but what we don't want them to do is have to wait to get that license in order to get to work. And Madam Chair, I should have said at this point, I do have a friendly amendment to this that was texted to me, so I don't have a nice typed copy of that text for you, but I can read it.
Chairman Martin,
can I continue?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know Senator Walker had a bill. I think you worked with him on that bill last year. I had a bill that we worked on, licensure by endorsement. We have one coming that will update that to the current federal standards in terms of the requirements for licensure by endorsement. So, which I believe I understand is what the military wants us to do and requires. Mm-hmm. If we do that, how are we not abiding by what
is the time frame that you are looking at for your?
Well, I want it to pass this year and go into law July 1st.
To get their license.
It's licensure by endorsement, okay, which is what I am told by what we were referring to, I think this year, Chairman Powell was referring to as a legislative architect, someone that knows the military works. I mean, it wouldn't be immediate, but I mean, look, I'm all about getting people to work, but we have requirements for licensure in Georgia.
We do.
One of those being that you can't be in the country illegally.
And that's in this sub.
So you did put that in
yes.
sub, because I know that it wasn't in the original bill.
Y'all should have the sub.
I have LC 460749, and this is just set down, so I'm just now reading it. So
I have
read the previous one. Is that the one?
LC 460749S is what I have.
Right. So let me, if I can, then shift over, Madam Chair, and ask the attorney, do we have a time frame on the licensure by endorsement, Jean Marie?
It says in Code Section 43-1-35, it says in subsection E that an expedited license by endorsement shall be issued no later than 90 days.
Yes, that. And as far as the Defense Department is concerned, when they rank us as a military-friendly state, that is what gets us 0 points in that category of licensure. The 90 days that we have gets us 0 points.
Okay. Well, I guess my pause with this, and I'm for letting people work. I am. I've carried these bills before. I talked to you about that. But I think if you're going to be here, then I would have your bill allow them to work temporarily under an employee for the time that they're getting a licensure, an expedited licensure by endorsement. I would be more willing to that. I think it's hard. It's hard for me. I want to accommodate that. I understand. I have not been in service, so I'm not walking in those shoes. But there are people in various professions that talk about, I don't want to require them to do less than we require people to live in Georgia all their life. So I want to give that, what I'm getting at and ask your question is, if you're interested in getting them to work, and you are, then it seems, would it not be a compromise to allow them to work for a period of time with an out-of-state license, which is similar to what you have to have. You have to have a license in good standing to get the expedited licensure by endorsement, for that period. But they're applying, to get licensed in Georgia at that point.
Okay,
I mean, would the lady see that?
So what you're saying, they can get hired, but they must start working toward their license.
Well, yeah, or they could get hired, or they had, if it's not, we guarantee. Sean Marie, I'm not going to sit here and say that it says 90 days. I'm not saying that everybody has one in 90 days. That's what it says, but I'm sure it wouldn't be right. So I don't know that
No later. It's like you need to be doing it
Okay.
earlier than
So what
90
I'm getting at is,
90
yes,
days.
for them to get going, they could get started work, but there would be a period. I don't know that I'm not asking the lady to agree here that it would be 91 days or 90 days. Maybe it's
Well,
a few.
again-
There's some overlap that you would have to get your Georgia license, but you would be able to work immediately for a number of days until you got the Georgia license. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, but again, anytime that 90-day language that is in there will still continue to get us 0 points as far as the Defense Department is concerned, and we will continue to not get awarded the missions that we need and continue to lose missions because of our status in this category. If they could go ahead and get hired, and
I don't think. Let me do this because I don't articulate myself well. They would be able to start.
Okay.
And they would work for a period of time. I'm not going to set it at 90 days because you're supposed to have your license by endorsement by 90 days because sometimes something might be late. Maybe it's 120. So you could work for 120 days. You could maybe it's 180 days. I don't have that number, but you could start. You could do that, but you were in the process of getting your license. You basically have to start the process to get Georgia license.
For us
I think
to-
that's a good place to
Okay,
meet.
so let me add this. To get points for the DOD, we would have to have at least, they would have to be awarded their license within 30 days. So we could talk about that language, but instead of the 90, I would say that we do the 30, which is what we have tried to do in the House for a number of years. I think there have been 4 House bills that have successfully passed the House where military spouse members would be awarded their license within 30 days, and every year it goes to the Senate and badness happens.
Further question, Madam Chair, it's not true that when we set that and we want to do that, then when we tell somebody they have to do it for a military spouse in 30 days, that means somebody in Georgia that is waiting on a license goes to the back of the line. The bandwidth doesn't get bigger.
And-
So again, what I'm getting, and respectfully, I'm not interested in points from the DOD. I'm worried about getting people to work.
Exactly.
If we let them go to work, as your bill says, on their out-of-state license, the day they walk into the state, and say for a period of time, that's good, but after so many days, you need a Georgia license to continue, that should get 100 out of 100 points with the DOD because they can start immediately. They just have to get a Georgia license in a place where it would match.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying 90 days or 91 or 89, but does the lady agree that would get them working immediately?
It would.
And that then they would have the opportunity to get a Georgia license, and they could work on their out-of-state license until such time as they got a Georgia license. If it was 30 days or 60 days, as long as they could work on 90 days, it wouldn't matter, right?
And just to clarify, Chairman Martin, what you're saying is essentially they move in, they're able to work on day one, and whatever the length of time that is required for them to get that Georgia license, that they can temporarily work for that entire period of time. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, I think
if it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days.
somebody would. I'll leave the lady to do a little research here and find out what. I don't think we could say until forever because there would be no sense of
Put a cap.
urgency to get it. But I'm not saying it has to be 90. Maybe it's 108. We'll give you 6 months to get it. We say we'll do it for you in 90. We'll give you 6 months to do it. That was just I was trying
Okay.
to find a meeting of it because I hear what you're saying, and I don't mean to be flippant when I'm saying I'm not doing this for the DOD. I'm doing it for the people. And that's
Well, and
what
I'm
the lady
doing it
is.
for my people
That's
in
what
my
I'm saying.
community.
Right, but for them. So I think this accomplishes that
Okay.
task without putting other Georgians to the back of the line because you're expediting theirs down to 30 days and moving people back. That's all. This seems to.
And I get that, but in a military community, there is often a lot of turnover. And so, military spouses move in, military spouses move out, and it's that constant rate of turnover, which is why our business people need the freedom and flexibility to hire people. This legislation was modeled on Utah, which kind of sets the gold standard for what military communities need. I think that this goes back to the freedom and flexibility that we give our business people. They know what they need. They know how to hire the people they need to hire. And, I don't want to put other Georgians to the back of the line, but in a military community, it's often just military spouses that are there. And that's the bulk of our workforce. If I may, an anecdote from our general's wife at Robbins. She's licensed in 10 states as a speech pathologist, and she had trouble jumping through the hoops of licensure in Georgia. And I submit that is unconscionable, that we keep people waiting like that. The first 7 years of my marriage, I moved 4 times. And it's hard. And I know that we want to treat everybody fairly, but military spouses are a special category of people. No one else moves every 2 years. No one else starts their life over every 2 years, while their husbands or wives are off getting shot at. And so military communities need special things sometimes because of the nature of what it is that we do for a living. When our service members are overseas, they don't want to be worried that their spouse is at home and can't get a job and is working and is not being able to put food on the table. So I think that's the place where I'm coming at, and we can, as long as we can get these women and men to work the minute they get to a base, I think that there's room to talk about that. I would like to see our professional licensing boards get everybody their license within 30 days. We've heard testimony for 3 weeks now about the backlog that's there. It's not a functional place right now to get a license in Georgia. So I that's where I stand, and I think I would, if we can get them to work on day one, I think there's room to discuss that. Madam Chair, would you like me to read that amendment that came to me at the very last minute?
Yes, do you have a printed copy of that for the committee? Or
I have a handwritten.
You have a handwritten
It was on
copy.
a text.
How long is it?
It's a sentence.
Okay, I'd love to hear it. Thank you.
It will go at the beginning of line 41. That number D, or letter D, sorry. Do we see that? It will begin, when a license cannot be issued under the provisions of OCGA 43-1-34B within 1 week, and where the issuance of the license is not delayed due to a disciplinary action or criminal background matter. And Madam Chair, I have your phone number, and so I will text you that, since that's how it came to me. And that way that you will have that. And look at us using technology as we're in here. Okay, Chair, you should have that coming at you.
If I could also,
And
Representative.
I perhaps haven't been as eloquent as I needed to be, and we do have people here to testify to this bill, but I'll be happy to take some more
Certainly,
questions.
I just want to confirm, again, I'm pouring it over it here at the moment, just to clarify. So based on the bill as is written, meeting all the qualifications beginning on line 41, there would be no requirement that these spouses obtain a Georgia license at any time, correct?
Although most, I think most would want to. There are women and men that have licenses in 10, 15 states. they sort of rack them up as they go, because sometimes you repeat a base as you go through your career. And so there are quite a number of people who would be happy to get their Georgia license. They just need to work while they're in the process of doing it. They can't sit home and miss half the money that normally is coming into their family.
I understand. Having been raised on military bases all over the country, I certainly have a sympathetic heart for the plight and need. My mother was a school teacher, so I understand the challenges. We moved every 2 to 3 years my entire life, so I do. I appreciate the thought behind the bill. I do. Did you say we have some? Do you have any other questions for Representative Ballard? Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Let's see here. Okay, if there are no further questions for Representative Ballard, I believe we do have some folks here wanting to give testimony. I don't think we had a sign-up sheet. Oh, you do have one, sorry. All right. And these are all for her? These are all for HB 880?
They don't all list numbers, only the top two did.
Okay. Just make sure we're... Okay, first on the list is D.A. King. You'd like to take to the podium, please? I think we're going to limit testimony to 2 minutes if possible. Thank you.
2 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is D.A. King, and I am here to offer some experienced corrective language to this bill. If I only have 2 minutes, I'll get right to it. Lines 50 through 52. It's an effort to ensure the work eligibility and lawful presence of a military spouse who is going to be expedited or skip the process of getting a license. I have to make it clear that in 2006, the General Assembly passed and the governor signed into law OCGA 5036-1, which is a process by which an applicant for public benefits fills out an application swearing to eligibility through either U.S. citizenship or lawful presence, and that lawful presence term is important. That application and paperwork and information is then run through a federal system called SAVE, S-A-V-E. I won't do the entire name, it's boring. That ensures that the applicant for a public benefit, which includes occupational licenses, has lawful presence. It's a very boring immigration term. 50 through 52, lines 50 through 52 are aimed at substituting a new process for what I just described to you. Right now, everybody applying for an occupational license has to go through the process of 5036-1. These lines call for these lines call for the in-state employer hiring the spouse has somehow verified that such spouse is a U.S. citizen. If not a citizen, maintains lawful presence in the United States under federal immigration law. The employer will have zero ability to do that. Employers can use E-Verify to confirm employment eligibility, but the employer cannot find, there's no tool for an employer to find lawful presence. I have language that is already in state law for this exact purpose several years ago. If I'm not mistaken, Representative Martin had a bill last year or the year before into which we inserted this language. It's one sentence. It can easily take the place of what you've got in 50 through 52. I mean it very respectfully, but I can pretty much promise this language will not pass the Senate. I'm happy to pass on the information if you want it, and that's really all I had to say.
Thank you, Mr. King. Okay. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak to HB 880? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. Absolutely appreciate you having me here today to speak to you about this. I don't know that I think Bethany Ballard is absolutely more articulate than I will be, but I will certainly do my best. So we're absolutely in support of.
Sorry to introduce, but please introduce yourself.
Oh, my apologies. Dan Rhodes. I'm COO of the 21st Century Partnership. We represent Robbins Air Force Base in the community. We're a community organization, connects the base to the community. Certainly, absolutely in support of HB 880. She had a lot of the great points that we've been talking about, especially for the military spouses. One thing that I wanted to add specifically for military spouses, 2021, the Department of Defense did a survey of active duty spouses. The 48% of the respondents, the number one critical criteria that they had was licensure. So as they're moving from base to base, there's their primary consideration. Number two was loss of income, because they know that every time they're moving place to place, they're going to have a gap in their funding, in how much they're bringing into the household. That creates a huge problem with those households as they're trying to move around. What ends up happening, what the Department of Defense has seen over time, is it decreases the number of people that are actually staying in, builds a retention problem in the services. So helping to all of our spouses to make sure that they have the ability to be able to get a license as soon as they move into the state and are able to get to work will help alleviate some of that stress. Two good points about that. One, we're getting more workers in the state of Georgia doing the great things we need to do, school teachers, nurses, et cetera. But also, it shows and demonstrates to those folks that Georgia is an amazing place to live, and sets them up so when they're ready to retire, they'll want to either stay in this state or come back to the state, because they know they'll be supported by the state as well. So that was one of the points that certainly found very interesting. Just so that you know, right now, as it stands, the average unemployment period for military spouses is 19 weeks. That's a huge amount of time as spouses are looking to get another job. Thank you very much for the work that you guys have done in the past on the other bills that have helped military spouses. It's been iterative. I understand trying to get to the full resolution, as Representative Ballard said. Right now, the standard for DOD is 30 days. They would like to get it to 0. They like Utah's law, but they really like the law that's been introduced here. Gave everybody on the committee a packet of information. It includes letters of support from multiple organizations, including Hiring Our Heroes. We have a local chapter down at Robbins Air Force Base, the Robbins Chamber, the Augusta group that represents the Fort Eisenhower there, as well as ourselves. Appreciate the support from lots of folks across the state in supporting this. Another one that I want to bring up just very quickly is the Servicemen Civil Relief Act. That's a federal law that was passed, and I think one of the great things about this bill is it absolutely meets the underpinning of that bill and eliminates that as an issue in this state moving forward into the future. So, any questions for me?
I think we do have one question, Chairman Martin.
Tell me about the Servicemen's Relief Act. I mean, can you do that in a 10-second blast? I mean,
sure,
it
absolutely.
requires us to do what?
So license portability provision provides that service members and military spouses can have their out-of-state license recognized as valid in new states while they're stationed there, as long as they meet certain requirements. This does exclude law practices and medical license. I don't want to go through. There was a list.
Fair enough. I didn't know the title. I wanted to know. My understanding is that was just updated recently, and that was. I've actually got somebody bringing that over here. Madam Chair, I'm being I'll get to the question, but I'm having to bring it over here because we need to update that, because we talk about similar training and so forth, and what we've done is someone has brought language to me that we need to update that, because it leans more towards scope of practice, as long as your scope of practice in the state where your license were, I believe, is the latest update to that.
I am
that
absolutely
bill.
not a lawyer, so I can't
Well,
speak
no,
to
that's
that.
fair enough. So we're on the same thing. So my question, is this, and I'm going to try to articulate again, because I don't think I'm doing a good job. Is I do believe I mean, that we want to get people to work, not just military spouses, everybody that moves to Georgia. And I have pause with, and we have had pause before with dropping we've got to get your license in 30 days. Everybody else in Georgia is a different thing. Really, I would agree with the lady that we want to try to do everybody in 30 days, but we're not there yet. So I'm hesitant to put people, in front of other folks. So would you agree that if they could work on their current license for a time certain to get going, and then they would get a Georgia license by endorsement, so that we're pointing that toward there wouldn't be a break in service, would fit what you're trying to do is to get people to work without moving other Georgians to the back of the line?
So I would say that spouses are already having issues. A lot of spouses that I talked to, in fact, some of them trying to go through the process ended up having to go to one of our legislatures and ask for them for help in getting their license.
They're not
through the
alone.
system.
That you're getting
That's
to
the
my
problem.
you're getting to my
Yes.
point, sir, and I agree with that. And isn't that true that they're not alone? And what worries me is when we carve off a group that that's pain. We need to fix the pain. And so I like what you got going here. I would say we're going to get you to work, but you still have to get a Georgia license, or either just. I'm looking at a gentleman in the audience who say some of these things may not need licenses anymore. They're actually
Roger
barriers to entry altogether. So
would agree.
you had me at hello on that. I would just say to work this thing so we could get everybody that moves to Georgia to work right away.
The only question that I would have, sir, from a hiring person,
Sure.
would that be a deterrent, knowing that I could get them in and for 180 days I could work them, but if they're unable, because of the systems that are in place, able to get their license, now I've lost them as an employee.
Well, and again, I'm just seeing the changes in this today, but I'm going to go around with what Mr. King said. I've seen bills float through here, and when we see it, we're trying to use an axe to fix a problem for a small, very important group of people, and we're leaving other people at the doorstep. And as it goes through the process, 180 House members and 56 senators worry about the people in their area that are getting left behind. So I suggest we use this as using a military term, the point of the spear, to make a change that matters to all Georgians. Maybe
Sure.
we should do this. And I know the representative wants to move something this year, and I think we can do that. And so I would be amenable. I mean, and I think, and it doesn't have to be me. I'm one of 180. But to get people to work right away, if you're in the process of licensure, you could continue your job unless you were denied for a reason. That's what I'm saying. I'm not married to 90 days or 180 days. You just need to start the process. If you're going to be a Georgian and we're making all Georgians get a license, then a military spouse ought to have to get a license. Mm-hmm. If we're not making all Georgians get a license, then let's get rid of some of these licenses. I'd love to hear a ongoing conversation about that. I think it's ridiculous the things you can do. I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I'm going to stop after this. But I had a person call me because they had a run-in in jail time. They couldn't get a license to wash hair in a cosmetology area in a hair salon because of a little run-in they had, and I'm not talking about a big felony, but it kept them to it, and they couldn't get a license. We've got to get people to work. So,
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true? What I'm trying to do is just treat everybody. If we were going to do this, I'd just like to do it and say everybody could go to work, and you start trying to get a license. If you got a license in another state that's the same as ours, you can go to work immediately. As long as you're trying to get a Georgia license and you haven't been denied, you can keep working. And it's on our Secretary of State and the licensing board to get you a license. You can work till if that's 90 days, Madam Chair, or 180 days or 5 years, as long as you're doing the process to do it and they're holding you up, you can keep working on your out-of-state license. I'd like to do it for everybody, not just military spouses.
Yes, sir.
And
of course,
with that, Madam Chair, I would like to help her, make her bill bigger, cover more people.
my focus, of course, is on the military spouses.
I understand,
appreciate,
but
your focus
if
as
we're
well.
if we're helping a lot of people, you have a lot of people in support of
Absolutely.
it, even
Concur.
more.
I just wanted to make a comment and echo Chair Martin's response. I'm all for military spouses having these licenses immediately, but I'm also a employer of mental health professionals. And even with a license in the state of Georgia, it takes weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, to get a mental health professional approved to work in Georgia. And just like we've all discussed, you're gonna lose an employee if you gotta wait 6 to 8 weeks to get anybody approved for anything. And with the important things that they do, because if it wasn't important, you wouldn't need a license. We need to really cut down on the bureaucracy and the paperwork, because these services, all of them, are too important to let it languish the way they're languishing now. So all for the military wives or spouses, and all for cutting down some of the bureaucracy around license.
I do have that stat for you as well, ma'am. 87% of spouses are female, 13% are male. So there you go.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak to HB 880? Come on up and introduce yourself. We're going to try to stick to our 2-minute time limit on testimony, please.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair. I will be brief. Hello, I am Miriam Goodfriend. I am with Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies Coalition of Georgia. I am here today to represent Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, as well as 9 to 5 Coalition of Georgia. We did give the author, Representative Ballard, our letter of support, so I will make sure and encourage you all to give that a read over. We think that this legislation would address needed economic support in the state for mothers and infants, and we are here throughout this process and very grateful to you all for all your work on this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very quick, 2 minutes. Cosby Johnson with the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, also representing our hub council chambers, which are our Will and Spoke communities, Macon, Savannah, Augusta, and the like. I want to, number one, thank the author, Representative Ballard, for bringing this bill, because I do think one thing that is missed is the focus on what the DOD, how they grade communities and how they grade base communities and what that does. For a lot of our base communities, 7 of which are involved in our hub county or our hub council chambers, 25% of their GDP is created off of the base's activity. If that base goes away, if that base loses a strategic partnership, if that base loses an installation, then that does have a very direct effect on every single business, not just in that area, but in the contiguous areas that those people work, live, and play. So when you talk about 25% of GDP of any kind of county being absolutely wiped away, it does matter what the DOD says when we talk about keeping these bases exactly where they are and ensuring that we keep installations and bring those installations in. One of the things that they look at, as the representative said, is how we treat military spouses. And when we are receiving a 0 for that, that is unacceptable. And for us as a chamber, and as we build out for those local communities that are affected, it is important for us to also have those spouses working in the area that they have a specialization in. I'm a locally elected official down in Brunswick. We have a ton of spouses who come over from Kings Bay military base, and when they come over from Kings Bay, they're having to work outside of their speciality, when instead of a teacher being in a classroom, a nurse being at a hospital, they are flipping burgers at Sea Island or working in the other industries that we have in the area. That's unacceptable as well when you talk about the military pay that they're starting out at. So for us, it's more than a business issue. It's more than a community issue. It really is a people issue. And for us to kind of move around or say that these military spouses aren't a very special kind of person, I think that's something that we need to focus on. This bill does that, and it allows us to move it forward. So that's our support. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was our last person signed up to speak to HB 880. Okay. Thank you. I think, and Representative Ballard, I want to thank you for bringing this bill. I mean, I have a special place in my heart for our military spouses, having, being the daughter of one, right? and I do appreciate the heartfelt sentiment behind it. What I think we're hearing today is that perhaps we might want to have some more conversations about the language in the bill and the best way to approach this. Do you want to come back to them? Thank you. So I think what we're going to do today is we're going to treat this committee hearing just as a hearing on this bill. I would like to speak to just a couple of things that I've heard today, and were our licensing procedures not so heavily laden with bureaucracy and roadblocks in the state? Did it not take so? If we were not in a situation where it took such an outrageously long period of time to get licensed in the state for people that are moving in, we probably wouldn't have a need for this bill.
Yeah. I do have, and I think this might satisfy Chairman Martin's language. If we could add the military, and lawyer this up, Sean Murray, the military spouse may be hired with a valid license from another state and remain employed as long as they are pursuing a Georgia license. Would that satisfy?
Chairman Martin, let me hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I want to say one thing to Mr. Johnson is to be clear. I do think the military spouses are special people. I don't take your words that they were that I don't. But I just want to be clear about that. I also think I think the rest of our Georgians, as I know the representatives. And to answer your question, I asked for a bill to be brought that we have been working on, and I don't think I do actually have it. I have a bill that lets everybody, that I'd like to give to the lady, and it can be yours, that lets everybody that is licensed out of state start working and work in Georgia until they get a license. So that's what I was kind of going for. It's not. I just want to do it for everybody, not just the military spouses. I think if it's okay to do it and you can work safely, while you're getting a license in Georgia, I think the military spouses ought to be able to start. And I think if you live in North Augusta, and you actually live in North Augusta, but you need to come. Believe it or not, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I know you're ready to go, but believe it or not, you can be a locksmith in North Augusta, and on a weekend, on Christmas Day, can't find anybody else to open the car. That locksmith in North Augusta, South Carolina, cannot come into the state of Georgia and unlock your car, because they aren't licensed to do it in Georgia. Now that's a story I've been told. So to answer the lady's question, if we could get that in the bill, so we could just let everybody go to work while they're getting a license, I think the lady would be doing a great thing for the military spouses and all the folks that want to come to work in Georgia. And yes.
Okay. May I ask a question of would that, if we were to do this and have it for everybody, would that still satisfy the DOD requirement and get us points in that? Okay. Then I will take a look at that, and you and I together can do great things.
I think we may be onto something here, Chairman Martin. Yeah. If I may, I would also like to just say, we talk about all Georgians. I think that we can both honor and appreciate the certain challenges that our military personnel have without disparaging or somehow putting other Georgians down.
Absolutely.
There is no question that our military spouses, are they average Georgians? Well, yes and no in a lot of ways. They operate on a whole different guise. They, it's a very unique lifestyle where they, sometimes with military spouses through no choice of their own, they are forced essentially have to move every 2 to 3 years. That's a little atypical for the average Georgian. So I do recognize, and I think in the end we want to ensure that we're doing the best we can for our military personnel and all Georgians. And if we can simultaneously improve our rating with the DOD, well, that would just be the icing on the cake. I'm excited to what may come out of this. And I hope you understand that by saying, let's take a pause on this, let's perfect it, let's talk, it's only because I want to set your bill up for the best chance of success when it reaches full committee.
And before I step down, I do want to say one reason they are special, no other group of people sends the person they love the most to a foreign country to get shot at.
Thank you, Representative Ballard. Thank you so much. Okay, our next bill up, HB 575. Do we have the author in the room? There, you were hiding behind the column. Thank you, Representative Gullett. Tell us about your bill.
Man, let's knock over everything while we're here. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I present to you House Bill 575. It's not a sub. It's the one that's there. 540207 is the LC. This bill is not just about the law. It's about livelihoods and dreams. This bill is a significant step towards enhancing our economic freedom, ensuring our professional landscape remains dynamic and accessible. In our current era, too many talented individuals find paths blocked by unnecessary occupational barriers, and this bill proposes to dismantle those barriers. It empowers individuals and entities to challenge regulations that are outdated, unnecessary, and overly restrictive. By establishing a review process for those regulations, we're not only upholding the standards of our professions, but also embracing a system that supports innovation and adaptability. Let's be clear, we're not diminishing quality or compromising safety, but instead we're ensuring that our regulations serve the public interest without imposing undue burdens on aspiring professionals. And I think by passing this bill, we will show that Georgia truly is open for business. We're open for opportunity and open for all who seek to contribute their skills and talents. So let's dive in the bill a little bit. What's the problem statement? It's one of the things I ask whenever I'm on a committee. What are we trying, what is the problem? And I'd summarize that by saying that all too often, outdated and unnecessary regulations act as roadblocks, stifling the ambitions of talented individuals. So what are we trying to accomplish besides trying to solve that problem statement? Like I said earlier, we're trying to ensure that our regulations serve the public interest without placing undue burdens on those seeking to enter various professions. This is about striking the right balance, ensuring regulations fulfill their purpose without becoming obstacles to professional entry. So how am I proposing to do that? What this bill does is establishes a process for individuals or entities to petition these boards for to review specific regulations. The review criteria include assessing the applicability and necessity of the regulation, its fulfillment of legitimate objectives, and whether it's the least restrictive means to ensure the public safety and well-being. If a petition is submitted, occupational licensing board that issued the regulation, the agency must respond within 30 days, either denying the petition with reasons or initiating rule-making proceedings. In legal challenges against occupational regulations, if the plaintiff prevails, if it's proven that the regulation unnecessarily burdens entry into profession and doesn't meet the stated criteria. And in such cases, the court can enjoin enforcement of the regulation and award attorney's fees and costs to the plaintiff. And so, in essence, what this bill does is it empowers individuals and businesses to challenge regulations that no longer serve us. It establishes a review system that's swift, fair, and rooted in the realities of today's professional world. And what I just want to make sure to clarify is that only the folks who have the licenses can petition. It can't be, hey, I'm not an engineer, but I think these engineers have too many regulations. It's got to be someone who's overseen by the board that they have a license for. I'm happy to answer any questions related to that.
Okay. Don't believe you have any questions, and I think you explained it very well.
Thank you.
Assuming the objective here is to identify what outdated, cumbersome regulations, it's no surprise to me that our regulatory outlines may be replete with lots of things that need to be examined again. Can you give me an example of something where maybe
Sure.
A licensed professional might want to challenge a particular aspect of a regulation or something?
Yeah, so I have what got me thinking about this issue was, like probably you guys, really some of the most percentage of constituent calls I get are related to licensing boards here in the state, and it's really difficult to get answers. People are waiting, just like we're talking about here, waiting to get their license to go to work or waiting to renew their license. Sometimes it's a family handing down, a business to their children. They're getting to the business. It's just taking forever for that process to happen. But I had a constituent trying to open a used car, or to sell used cars, and I think he's going to sell about 15 a year. It's just something, a little side thing he was doing. He was paying rent for a location for 6 months, because it requires a separate location from his business where he's going to have it, but 6 months before they even got to him. So 6 months of having a location. You must have a landline. Who has landlines really today? But you had to have a landline. He had to have all these other things going on, sitting there waiting for this waiting for his petition to be reviewed. So for 6 months, he was losing money, having a facility open, in the hopes of maybe selling 15 cars throughout the year that he could find. He just loved cars. And so for him to do the right thing, a lot of people sell more than the allocated amount of cars per year, and never become a used car dealer. He's doing the right thing, but we sat there and took wasted a lot of his money in order to get the license to sell used cars. When I think a lot of people probably say, I'll just sell my 15 used cars. And it's not a car lot, 15 used cars a year maybe, and move on. But to do the right thing is really punishable. So that's a perfect situation where I think, hey, is this really the least restrictive means to do what they're trying to accomplish, and why is that rule there? Maybe there's a great reason for it. I never could get to that answer about that, but maybe there's a great reason. But I don't know what it is. He doesn't know what it is, and it took 6 months to figure to get a license. So that would
And
be
your bill
something
would
I think that
require
he would want to challenge.
require 30 days, either an approval or denial.
Right. Well, hey, why
of the
do I need
petition
a
in
why do I
30
need a
days.
facility? And then why do I need a landline? If whatever it is, what is your policy decision driving that? And at least people will understand why they're why these rules exist. And there's probably a good reason for most of them, or at least at one point there was a good reason. And maybe it's no longer needed, and maybe they can figure out better ways to do things to make things more efficient.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Representative Collett?
One additional thing I might add, this is, unfortunately, it didn't come out of my brain by itself. It was done in Louisiana, I think to much success. And we might have some people maybe talk about just the success there. But it's not a new idea. We're not on the razor,
This
thin
has been
line
done
of where
before.
we're going. Right,
I
yeah.
understand.
Bleeding edge of
Yeah.
this idea.
Thank you, Chairman Collett. I think we have someone else here to, Mr. Brockway, are you here to speak to the bill?
Yeah, Representative said everything I was going to say, so I won't.
Well,
Say I'm with the
doesn't that make you an easy witness?
We support it. So.
Okay.
Right. I think a number of organizations.
You're with the Georgia
do.
Center for Opportunity. Sorry.
Yeah, I think quite a few other organizations, Americans for Prosperity supports it. A few others email me about it. I can't remember who they are off the top of my head, but supporting the measure too. So, good business sense bill to open opportunity for all Georgians.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. If there's no other one here to speak to the bill, Representative Hutchinson, do you want to weigh on this? Do you want to make a motion? Thank you. Yes, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
This overwhelming large committee passed your bill out.
This is the fewest
It's
I've
you
ever
and me.
presented to.
It's you and me.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll hear HB 904. My understanding is that we have a substitute for that. I was handed. Okay. Hello, Representative Vance.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll be operating off of LC 365683S. This is a very short bill of 45 pages, both sides.
You will pause just 1 second. Oh, you get, okay. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. And I do have someone that can explain it much better than I could, but I do want to say time out just a second and ask you both to turn to page 5. On line 115, insert the word manhole. That's it. Manhole.
So it should read adjacent to any building, structure, conveyance, or manhole?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Now I'll get on with it. This bill is to update the rules and regulations that apply to electrical contractors, plumbers, conditioned air contractors, low voltage and utility contractors that have not been updated since 1997, approximately 27 years. I do have a Mr. Roland Weekly, professional engineer, here with me today. What we're trying to do is just update them to the 21st century. These rules and regulations that contractors operate under all day long. This bill has been gone over through the Georgia Utility Contractors Association, and they're fine with it. And I'm going to ask Mr. Weekly if he'll come up here and explain a little bit and answer questions, since I'm a lawman and he's a contractor.
Okay,
All right,
let's hear from him.
Mr. Weekly.
Again, my name is Roland Weekly. I'm a professional engineer. You mentioned as a contractor. I'm on the licensing board of Division 4 for the state of Georgia, which covers the utilities, plumbing, low voltage, mechanical, air conditioning, and electrical. I'm a consulting engineer, not a contractor. So technically, I have no real personal interest in this from a business perspective, because I'm a volunteer for the board. I happen to be the chairman over all those boards at the present time. So the point being that, as Ken said, it's really kind of an update. When this law was drafted back in the 80s, it apparently was, from my perspective, was drafted by each individual division, plumbing, mechanical, whatever, and it's really disjointed. Very, very disjointed in a lot of aspects. There's things that apply to maybe plumbing that don't apply to mechanical or air conditioning or electrical or whatever when they should. So there's been some effort to trying to clean some of that up. Not that it's made a 100% effort, because it's kind of convoluted to the point that it's difficult to get it all at one pass. The other part of it is, some of it is just structural changes. When you start seeing large sections that are struck out, you'll probably find that same section further down repeated because of that disjointed nature. So a lot of that is just trying to clean things up. And a lot of if you took it from a word count, probably 80% of it is grammatical, getting the proper word instead of person and individual, things of that nature. So there's a lot of content in here that doesn't change anything. The things that we are addressing are things like, under electrical, it says you've got to have a consulting engineer on the board. Georgia doesn't have professional engineers. They have professional engineers. So we're trying to just change that word to be a professional engineer. It says you will have a chief electrical inspector. Today, that language is not used anymore. There are no chief electrical inspectors out there. So this board, the electrical board, has been without that member for 8 to 9 years now. That's not just the sole reason, but the point is, we're trying to change the wording that a lot of municipalities are going to contract companies to do inspections. So we're trying to broaden the wording that anybody that is engaged in that activity through a municipality or county, would be qualified to sit as that individual as an inspector, an electrical inspector for the board. So that's one of the items. There's one that was continuing education, where the wording was not more than 4 years. We're changing to that not less than 4 years. And the reason being, Georgia has one of the lowest continuing education requirements in the United States. I mean, it is at the bottom. And we're not advocating that we raise that number. That's not the point. The point being, though, we do reciprocity with other states that have much higher levels or standards of their licensing requirements. The concern is that we could want to one day say have reciprocity with Mississippi, and they say, sorry, we don't see there's a one-to-one match here. So it gives, at least at a board level, the ability to say, yeah, we need to address that. So it's not meant to take an action in that area, but to remove a boundary that is probably artificially set too low in today's age on continuing education. Along the lines of continuing education, trying to broaden things so that home study and the internet can be used. And this is very viable for people in South Georgia, where they don't have the metropolitan area of Atlanta to have a lot of vendors and people that can give continuing ed in that regard. So it's trying to address that aspect and bring it more into the modern age that we can use the internet and things of that nature. There's a provision in here that's defining that licensed plumbers are the ones that are going to do medical gas in hospitals. That's being added. Now that, whether good or bad, I don't know, but it does seem appropriate that when dealing with hospital aspects that there ought to be some qualifications for people doing that. And so that's being added. Advertising has been addressed, that to define that you're advertising yourself as a contractor is a violation of state law. We've got a real problem with particularly people in the trades going out and selling their services, and they are not licensed. There's no way to really prevent that in a sense, but advertising is one of them. To start saying, look, you're promoting yourself as a contractor. You are not licensed. And the trades that we're talking about deal with life safety. They really do. I mean, you can injure people and put homeowners in trouble. In fact, the complaints we get testify that. I remember looking at one complaint came in. The guy fell through the person's ceiling 3 times before finally they got him out of there, but he wasn't licensed. I mean, that's the type of people that are out there selling themselves. There's a death provision been added. If a business has been operating for years and the licensed agent of that business dies, we're adding provisions. They have 90 days to fill that gap. They just don't, because of death, the business shuts its door. That's not practical from the standpoint of the clients, nor is it practical from the standpoint of the business. And then the other one is monetarily fines. The fines were set back in 1980, so a $500 fine is basically meaningless today. So there's about a 3-to-1 ratio in that regard. So when you look at the fines, they've gone from, if it's 500, it's now 15. And it's just basically trying to deal with the inflationary effect on the dollar. And that's all that's doing. And basically that's it. Like I say, most of it you can decide word-wise or grammatical in nature or structural, just to try to bring some more cohesiveness to the wording, the bill.
Thank you. I don't know if we have any questions. Just kind of to summarize, it looks like we're addressing grammatical, structural, updating language, addressing the advertising issue, which I know we have dealt with in that committee before with other types of licenses. Yeah. Advertising that you're something that you're not, right?
Right.
I like the death provision. First I thought you said debt, but death provision.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you for that. At this point, we are down to 2 members in our committee again. Thank you for bringing the bill, Representative Vance. I appreciate it. At this time, I'll entertain a motion. Thank you. Motion to pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you, Representative Vance.
Thank you very much.
This meeting of the Regulatory Subcommittee is adjourned.